Sam Harris would also say Christianity is irrational, but then at the same time, you make the claim, well, that's preventing me from doing all the shit you're considering irrational, though.
Listen, I'm right with you.
And then he goes, wait a second, that's true. The problem, that's the problem, right? It's like,
have you debated him yet?
No, they're setting it up apparently.
Oh, good.
I don't know how anybody could ever believe any of the shit he believes. It's going to take me 5 minutes. I'm just going to clean his clock.
Sam's formidable though. He's
It's
thought
not
about
formidable.
this stuff.
I've watched him debate with Jordan Peterson. I'm like, come on, dude, are you serious? The reason you don't put your hand on the stove is because you don't put your hand on the stove. Because you don't. That's why you don't do it. It's like, oh, whatever, dude.
Andrew Willson, we meet face to face. Although we had dinner last night.
You have a very intimidating presence. I remember when we were meeting up for dinner. I was like, this guy's gonna kill me.
I'm tall.
Yeah.
And I'm
just
young.
Just ruthless looking.
Tight skin, intense eyes. Yeah.
It's a very intimidating presence.
Oh yeah, dude. People ask me for directions all the time. I'm like the guy that's trustworthy. You know, they're like, that guy's harmless.
Yeah, he's totally just the kindest guy ever.
My buddy said that. My buddy, I was talking about, I don't know, fighting or something. My buddy's a UFC heavyweight, and he goes, hey, you're not tough. He's like, in fact, if anything, you're on the other side of that equation. I was like, hey, man, it's my bone structure. I can't help it.
It's messed up.
Yeah,
it's messed up. Well, for the audience who's watching, you did a sexism last night at dinner.
Did. Oh, I did, didn't I?
You did a sexism.
Yeah.
Brian's wife. So for those of you who don't, Brian's wife called him out for a sexism. So waitress came over. And he was like, look, I really want to get a bottle of wine. My friend's here from out of town. I want to treat him to a nice dinner. You know, all the things you're supposed to do. Yeah. And he had some questions about the wine. She's like, well, I haven't really tasted the wine. He's like, do you think get one of the guys?
That was a good impression of her, by the way.
Yeah, so do you think
hold on. That was a very sexist impersonation because you went,
yeah, it was, well, I mean, that's what they all sound like to me. But anyway, so Brian says, look, can you get one of the guys over here who have tasted the wine? So, and his wife's like, you said one of the guys. Like, why couldn't it be a girl? And ironically enough, it was a female manager who came over. It was a female
sommelier.
Yeah, it was a female manager.
And that was a good wine. Over. She done well, right?
I mean, it was a good wine, but I feel like that was in spite of her. I feel like it was just because you made the choice and she was going to reaffirm the choice no matter what. Well, I did make the choice.
Yeah, I saw it and I was like, that's the wine.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good place.
It was a good place. Yeah, it was very good.
We touched on something. Last time we did a podcast, we left it on the idea that regardless of where you stand philosophically, you are going to live within parameters.
Yeah.
And no matter who you are, whether you're on the left, on the far left, on the right, on the far right, you establish parameters. And usually you argue over those parameters. You argue over the lines in which you are willing to fight for. That's kind of what happens, right? So if you're a typical academic liberal, you might argue, to borrow from Jonathan Haidt, that is it fair and does it do harm? And if it violates those two principles, then we have a huge problem. But you can violate all the other principles like sanctity and authority and loyalty. That's not really hurting anybody, right? And so
duty.
And these are the things that conservatives tend to hold closer. And it might be a personality trait. But you and I always talk, what I really appreciate about whenever you kind of argue is you're essentially arguing not just for parameters, but the parameters on which you argue have a Christian basis. Yeah. And not just that, they really are the parameters that the West has built everything that we all seem to flock to.
Right.
Around. And do you think that's a good argument to make?
I think it is. And the other thing is, so you bring up something which is interesting. It's the idea of universals. That's what you're really talking about.
That's the only thing I care about.
Yeah,
really.
It's like, what is like universal ethics here? When you talk about the harm principle, think about it. Think about why the left uses the harm principles, because they think of it as a universal.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Well, nobody likes to be harmed. Nobody likes to suffer. Nobody likes this. Nobody likes. So they're actually trying to smuggle a universal in, aren't they?
Yes.
You know,
yes.
That's really what's going on. It's like, well, this is something we can universally apply to everybody, except you can't.
Right.
You still can't apply that universal because it's just not true, right? It's like, no, people like suffering.
They do.
For instance, they love lifting weights.
Yeah.
There's a lot of suffering there.
So is sacrifice, by the way.
So sure. Yeah. And duty.
Yeah.
Duty can be suffering.
And I'll suffer for a while now so that there's a payoff later, you know. And
so this the whole harm principle thing, it just kind of, I just reject it. But it's even funner to accept it. That's what makes it more fun. You
Yeah.
say, okay, you know what, you're right. Let's look at this whole. You're right about this whole harm thing. You're right. Even if I use that metric, Christianity's still less harmful for society than any bullshit you come up with.
Yeah.
And then we just walk that all the way to the end too.
Yeah.
So no matter what, it's like it doesn't matter where we start or where we end. We're always going to come to the same place. My view is going to be correct, and your view is not going to be correct.
Well, how do you argue? How do you get yourself out of the fact that the founding fathers, who were essentially, if not Christians, deists,
Yeah.
and I know that most of what our, for example, justice system is predicated on is the Christian Judeo-Christian ethic, right? I mean, it really
English
is.
common law, yeah.
English common law, but that's informed by
Yeah.
the notion that we're all the same moral worth and those kinds of things, brothers and sisters under one God, one Father, and all that stuff, right? Is it that? But what would you do with the people? What would you do with the notion of individual liberty? So individual liberty is an important thing.
It is. But do you agree duty is too?
I think duty is inevitable. You can shirk your duty, but you're not going to be very happy.
But how come anytime I hear somebody talking about more rights, is it more rights, more me, more things for me? Like, I never hear any of these guys go, let's pass a constitutional amendment that's duty-based. That's like, all of us now have something that we should be doing.
Yeah.
There's never that. It's
Never.
always like,
Never.
can I have a constitutional right to get free shit? You know,
Well,
can I have a constitutional right to get thing, right? Get thing X?
Come on in. It's funny because in some I was talking to a couple of young men who were defining what a man is. My opinion as I get older is, you know, this idea when you're young, it's a man is a warrior who can fight and do all this stuff. I mean, you know, okay, that might be a role you play in a society if you have a certain constitution, physicality.
Sure.
You know, there are merchants, there are teachers, there are fighters. I think what a man really is someone who puts himself last, who is in a position of service, example, competence, which comes with authority, and ultimately, essentially provides more than he takes. That's at least the ideal. You know, I think that's what it feels like. Sort of be in a position where you can take care of people, provide them, you can provide for them, you can protect them, and you can guide them.
Well, when if I ask you this question, what is masculine and what is feminine, as far as like virtues go? What's a
Very
masculine
good question.
versus a feminine virtue?
I would say, I mean, I know what it is to me.
What is it?
I mean, I have to say that a masculine virtue would be protector, provider.
But women
And women is nurture, which is part of provision, but to be a nurturer, a healer. Even healer is dicey because men are great healers.
yeah, but let's look at this. Let's examine it though.
Yeah.
You want women to protect children, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's
Protectors.
a virtue. So protectors,
Yeah.
right? I think that the virtues, there's no delineation. Okay, so all virtues are shared virtues. So how do we know if they're masculine or feminine? This is a big question because you're asking the pivotal question. What's a man? What's a woman? And the left has used ambiguity around this, around the sexual basis because they want to be troons and
Well, they
everything
borrowed
else.
from Derrida
Sure.
the notion that there's no duality.
Well, I look at it like this. So if I want to see what's a masculine versus a feminine virtue, I look at if this virtue fails en masse by this sex, does society completely just become unraveled and get destroyed, or does it not?
Huh.
And so then, if it does, I assign that virtue to that
Yeah.
sex.
Or at least that role, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I would consider that to be part of the virtues, right?
Part of your duty.
Your duty
Yeah.
in society. So let's examine it this way. Women, let's say we have a full day where women just lose courage. That would suck. That would be really bad for society.
Yeah.
But if we had one day where men did, there is no society. And so if I'm going to break this down and say, so which one would we assign as a masculine versus feminine virtue? I think both men and women should be courageous.
Yeah.
But the reason this goes in the masculine category is because the failure of it completely destroys everything.
Does that then suggest that the delineation is that one sex is better at this than the other?
Oh, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
Yeah.
At least in a general sense.
Well,
but not always in a particular sense.
Yeah.
There are women who are more courageous than some men.
Of
There's
course,
no doubt.
Of course.
I'm not going to say that that's not true.
Of course.
But in general, that shit's not true.
Yeah.
Right? In general, that's not true.
Well,
same thing with strength. It is true. There
right.
are some women
Sure.
who are stronger than
You
almost
and I.
all men.
Yeah.
But that ain't the case in general, right? Not even close. And so,
by the way, your wife is stronger than both of us because I listened to the numbers she was putting up. So.
Well, I mean, she can lift a lot.
Yeah, and I can't lift that much, and I clocked that at dinner, and it kind of ruined my dinner.
Yeah.
Rachel. Sorry.
Sounds like a problem for you.
It is a problem for me.
But anyway, so I would just categorize it that way, right? It's not even that difficult when you think about it. It's actually really intuitive.
Yeah. But you said something, at the end of the day, also, we have to talk about, in a society, your rights, your country has to be protected.
Yeah.
And whether you like it or not, there are stronger forces, usually men, who are better organized, better equipped.
And they're going to kill you.
And they're going to kill you.
Yeah,
or they're going to enslave you and do whatever they want. They're going to use you as a tool or, whatever. And if you have
and that
any
pesky
doubts,
logic.
Yeah. If you have any doubts about that, please pick up a history book because that's the truth. So the fact of the matter is that a large question when you organize a society is who has a monopoly on violence.
That's right. Who's got the monopoly on force?
Very important question. And if it is government, which it probably should be, you want a republic, okay, you have to have a strong federal government, strong state government, but stronger federal government, blah, blah, blah. That's why you have to have representative government. You just got to have your rulers.
Think so?
Well, your rulers have to be, and at least it's a refined democracy. The better way to say it is you've got to have checks and balances. You can't have a pure democracy. You can't have people. That the founding fathers knew that.
No, you can't.
It's
but I
crazy.
think democracy in general is a terrible idea.
You do?
Yeah. Let me show a different view.
What about a republic, though? This is a refined
Well,
democracy.
initially the republic was that there was no democracy,
Right.
essentially, almost none.
It was landowners who.
Well, not just that. Sometimes you had to swear an oath on a Bible in order to vote.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not a joke, Many states had that as a requirement. But let me take a different approach here. Forget government and government infrastructure. Government's just an extension of people, right? Really, that's all it is.
Right.
Let me ask you this question. In the Middle East right now, there's tons and tons of countries of low IQ, inbred Muslims, literally low IQ, due to the fact they've had 1,400 years of inbreeding. I mean, it's just objectively.
You and I are going to disagree on this because I lived there. It's not that they're low IQ. It's the cultures are old and clannish. So Somali culture is a classic example. My friend who grew up in Somalia, it's so funny when I hear people say they have low IQs. It's so funny. That's a very old culture. I promise you the Somalis are, like the Sicilians, very clannish. So when you're Somali, you're loyal to your clan first.
Sure.
Then Somalia.
Islam.
Then the United States.
You don't think that the massive amount of first cousin marriage over 1,400 years has collectively lowered the IQ, though?
Of course, there was always that issue.
Yeah.
But, believe it or not, with a lot of tribes and stuff, they were aware of that. They figured that out. But people don't think they did. They did. There's this idea that they didn't. Human beings figure that stuff out. They go, wait a minute, when we're married, why does that kid have an underbite? So I think, typically, in fact, that's why you would always have your daughter leave and go to another tribe.
Well, then, Pakistan's like 60% inbred, though.
There are, when certain cultures come to another country, they get super insular and super clannish. And that is a major problem. It's the same thing with Ashkenazi Jews, especially when they're in those small enclaves.
Sure.
They would develop these prevalences of certain kinds of cancers and stuff. So I'm not going to say that that's not the case, but for the most part, the Somalis are, my friend was laughing, goes, it's an old culture, just like the Sicilians. So please, if you think they're dumb, you'll be very poor at the outcome of that if you get into a situation where you underestimate, a group of Somalis who are.
Well, I don't think you underestimate the group. But
I know. But anyway,
if I'm looking at a collective, I'm just looking at it this way.
Yeah.
We're not going to disagree on this point.
Yeah.
The United States is so far more technologically advanced
100%.
than a country like Pakistan that it's like the Apollo dealing with the Starship Enterprise. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that?
Yes, 100%.
So then how come the Starship Enterprise doesn't board the Apollo, take all their shit and leave? In other words, how come the United States, what's actually preventing us from just going in there, putting them all to the sword, taking all their shit, and leaving?
Part of it's just because we've probably seen how that works out historically. Alexander the Great was able to conquer the world because he never did that stuff. What he would do is it's an interesting question, because what he did was he would essentially say, hey, to the leaders, you can do whatever you want, keep your customs and everything else, you just got to swear allegiance to me.
Yeah.
Genghis Khan would usually do that too, because what he found was when he had these young men come in and kill and rape and everything else, what those young men did when they went back to their communities is did the same thing to their communities. And all of a sudden he said, you can't do that to them. And then the Khan came up with a major problem, which is, this is not a universal principle. I am being subjective here, and I'm just saying it's okay to kill those people. I know they look like us, but they're bad because they're over there. That doesn't hold. It doesn't hold. You'll be a snake eating its own tail. And one of the things that I think,
if you're trying to conquer,
yes, but my answer,
but not if you're just trying to kill and take the stuff.
That's true. But
the question is like, why don't we?
Well, because I think it degrades us internally. I think what happens is you cannot. That is not scaffolding or bedrock you can anchor into. It becomes immoral. It becomes something like. If the only principle you have, because what you're doing is exercising one principle, which is the man with the biggest club gets all the shit. Mm-hmm. And even with chimps, when you've got an alpha chimp, the females turn on that motherfucker and tear him to shreds, right? And ultimately, what I appreciate, and this is why I love how you argue, because what you're arguing for is not just universal principles, but they're universal principles because they are more true than the other principles. And what does that mean? They work better. They
well,
allow
it's not just
human
that they
beings
work
to be
better,
more themselves.
But the reason I bring this example up is because of this. I don't think it would be a problem for us to firebomb the shit out of Pakistan, blow them all to smithereens, have an invasionary force, conquer them within 6 weeks, leave with all their shit, leave our army, and who cares?
Right.
Bunch of decimated women and children, this and that. So they're actually banking in some ways on our benevolence. But what benevolence are we pointing to? We can't be pointing to like atheist benevolence. What atheist benevolence is there? From an atheist view, so I'm an atheist king of America, right? And I go, well, they got a lot of oil over there. I could use some oil over here.
You're right.
So what do you say?
You're getting into engineering now.
So what do
right?
you say we go over there and we just fucking kill them all? Yeah. We take all their low IQ shit. They don't need it anyway. These fucking peasants.
Yeah.
And then we hoard it all and we bring it all back here for us.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me like the Muslims and the Jews and everybody on planet Earth is literally banking on the benevolence of Christians to not do this to them. So in many ways, they're almost reaffirming our own ethics, aren't they? They're almost reaffirming like, okay, well, you can't do this. And you say, why? Well, because you're Christians. It's so you're reaffirming my ethical view. Okay.
So let me stress test that, because Sam Harris, if he was sitting here, would say, it has nothing, you don't need Christianity, you need rationality. And he uses the word rationality and rational about 1,000 times.
Yeah, what does that mean?
And I've really given him a lot of time, and I like Sam Harris for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I've never been able to jive with, he's not even an atheist really. He's more of a, he gets into Buddhism in a very deep way, so it's a different thing. But I would say that could you make the argument? Sam Harris would probably say, you don't need Christianity. You need rationality, because ultimately what you would find is that it is not rational to do that, because ultimately it would bankrupt you or it would just not work. Now, the Romans would fine. The Romans would disagree. The Romans did it forever and did very well.
Yeah.
So my
same
thing
with
is,
slavery. What are you talking about?
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So if you're talking rationality, then you're talking math, and then you're talking engineering.
And Sam Harris would also say Christianity is irrational, but then at the same time you make the claim, well, that's preventing me from doing all the shit you're considering irrational, though.
Listen, I'm right with you.
And then he goes, wait a second, that's true. That's the problem, right? It's like,
have you debated him yet?
No, they're setting it up apparently.
Oh, good.
I don't know how anybody could ever believe any of the shit he believes. It's going to take me 5 minutes. It's just going to clean his clock.
Sam's formidable though. He's
thought about formidable. I've watched him debate with Jordan Peterson. I'm like, come on, dude, are you serious? The reason you don't put your hand on the stove is because you don't put your hand on the stove. Because you don't. That's why you don't do it. It's like, oh, whatever, dude. But anyway. The whole rationality argument is retarded on its face. First of all, what does that mean? What does rationality mean?
Well, rationality
It
would
means
probably
some
mean-
shit that I made up.
It might be something you can measure, right? So rationality would be this.
How?
I think they would argue this way. You would say there is something you can measure mathematically, meaning we have more stuff for us, or there's more to eat. There's more shelter. This is kind of how they talk, right?
More for me to eat, more shelter,
I'm right with you.
more oil.
I'm right
more,
with you.
Ooh, it almost sounds like I should deploy my massively advanced army, kill all you fucking idiots who I don't like anyway,
Yeah.
take all your shit,
Yep.
take it back here, and sit on the bed with my concubines. What's the problem?
Keep going.
Yeah.
Let's expose all the profoundly retarded or people who are handicapped because they're a drag on resources.
Bullet
And
to the head.
And we
Just-
can give that money.
Yeah.
Give that money to the, and then while we're at it, people who've come from broken homes are probably going to end up in, you can just keep going, right?
Yeah.
And that's my thing. And that's my
So they
argument.
bank on our benevolence.
Yes.
That's interesting. And what is the benevolence they're banking? They're banking on the irrational Christians who believe in the sky fairy to continue to believe in their disappearing sky fairy doesn't really exist. The magic man in the sky, who we appeal to for our rationality. And then that's what prevents us from doing all of the things they consider irrational,
Yeah.
even though they can't make a case for how it's actually irrational. For instance, if it was legal for me to just, I don't know, kill Sam Harris, why shouldn't I just reach over, bash his fucking head in with a hammer, take all of his shit, and walk out the room?
Well,
why not?
the rational argument for that would be probably something like, when you have a society like that, you end up with Somalia, which isn't a country, Afghanistan, or these countries that end up producing nothing. There's no innovation.
So?
You get Russia, for
So
example.
why do I
No,
care,
I'm just
though?
saying. I'm saying that would probably be.
Yeah, but you see how irrational that is? Why do I give a fuck if you don't get that country
Well,
and you don't get that country?
you would-
Why shouldn't I just care that I get?
Well, you would
I'm the
care. You would
warlord.
care because I would say to you, Andrew, you can't ultimately live in a society like that because that somebody will bash you over the head. You're next, right? Because somebody's stronger. So you can make
And then you tell the guy, but if you're over here with me,
well, now
you
have,
get the bed of concubines, and that's the guy who gets his head bashed.
And so what do
in.
you get? You get warlords and gangs.
Sure.
And you get Haiti.
And the problem, if you're the warlord,
Yeah.
what's the problem?
There's no problem.
Right.
There's
And
no
that's
problem.
that's the reduction that is annoying to me because again, what are you banking on? You're banking on the fact that random strangers in society, I want them to do well. Random strangers in society,
is
I
my
want them to do
problem.
good. I want you to have a great family. I want you to have a nice life. I
This
want
is
you
my
to
problem with communism. Communism is you pledge fealty to equality.
Yeah.
And so what you have to have with equality is a strong monopoly of violence for your top-down government, your Politburo, to bash or confiscate from the people that actually produce, take risk, and use their ingenuity to get ahead. You've got to keep everybody equal, which means you got to keep everybody poor. And again, the only ideal you're going for here is some kind of an engineering thing you have to do on a board where you got to keep everything equal. And good luck with that.
You can't set market
those are real
prices,
human beings
can't
who are
do-
involved
yeah.
in that, yeah.
Well,
So,
let's look at this. This is an argument I call force doctrine. Let me run this by you. It's my position that all rights come from men to women, meaning that women cannot secure their own rights, but instead have to always appeal to men for rights. And this is because they have to always make that appeal to men, there's always going to be a patriarchy because essentially women have to appeal to the patriarchy to destroy the patriarchy, which requires enforcement from the patriarchy.
Well, I mean-
So it's circular.
Yeah.
I consider it a circular argument,
Yeah.
right? So here's the way I see it. Let's say tomorrow in the United States, all the men wake up and they're like, you bitches are all slaves now, and you're all going in my concubine cage, and that's that. What can women actually do about that?
They'd have to get other men
They,
to...
so women couldn't do anything. But here's what's interesting. Now let's reverse this, right? Women wake up tomorrow, and they say, oh, you fucking men, you're going in the concubine cages, right? We would go,
yeah.
that's cute.
Yeah.
And then walk that way, right? They could not collectively force us to do shit.
No.
Now then it gets more interesting. If the conditionals that men don't like, though, from other men who rule them, right? If that gets too draconian, men have recourse. They can do something about
They
that.
can organize.
They can do something about that because they can use a monopoly on force,
Yes.
right? Again, women can't do that. So we would comb through the historic record to find one case if that's never happened once.
Never.
Women have never, ever one time collectivized and used force to overthrow the chains of oppressors. They only appeal to men to do it for them, right? That's why equality is a lie. That's why equity is a lie. That's why men get the big piece of fucking chicken. That's why you need to be grateful as a woman and show some gratitude, because half the world does stuff your fucking asses in a cage because they can. There's no recourse.
Right.
Right? And what's happened here in the United States with these femoids and these feminist scum, right, is they have gone out of their way to pretend that that reality isn't reality. And so the thing is like, how about there's a little bit of respect for the fact that men must hold a position of great benevolence, especially if they're Christians, because they don't do that to you. And when you're in charge of the infirm, it's $600,000 a year that you kill.
Well, let me give you another perspective on that, though, because we have to be careful as well not to measure strength like we don't measure bravery or intelligence with one metric. We have to be careful about measuring strength. So it's true, men, the United States, let's take an example, home to the roaring stock market, to the NFL,
sure,
to the Navy SEALs, to Delta Force, to the biggest guns, to the F-35, all male inventions. And that is one, for that matter, your favorite Marvel characters with their, with the Roman chest and everything else. And that is a metric for strength, right? But we were talking about this the other day. There's another kind of strength. There's another kind of strength which could be something like you can still have strength and courage as a woman, and you can put men to shame with your courage if you're willing to sacrifice, for example, your own body, right? You're raising 3 kids as a single mom because some shithead left you, and you make it work somehow.
But that's duty.
It's duty.
Sure.
So we do hold that kind of strength in high regard as well.
Sure.
Like we do with different kinds of intelligence.
I completely agree with all of this.
So what do we do with that?
I'm not telling you to reject the virtues.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you anything like this. What I'm doing is giving you a descriptive reality. The descriptive,
I agree with that.
Yeah, the descriptive reality is like, this is what's actually real.
Yes.
And
it comes down to physics, doesn't it?
It does. It just comes down to the fact that, look, I think it's even worse than that. I think that the women could all be armed and try to enslave the men, and it still wouldn't do them any good. So the thing is, it's just like, that's how lopsided it is. I just watched a group of midgets take on these wildly in shape women and just toss them around like they were nothing.
I saw that.
Like they were nothing. I've watched, these 14-year-old soccer players beat these women's leagues like they're nothing, these professional sports teams.
Yeah.
They don't really understand the differential in strength between men and women on average. Whether individually you can be stronger than some men has no bearing on anything.
Well, I would argue that the closer you come to objective reality, when you try to start your own business, build your own brand, when you do a sport on a high level, you tend to be a lot less idealistic. You tend to, you tend to go, oh yeah. Talk to women athletes, great athletes like Serena Williams about how they do against the number 1,000 male tennis players.
Oh yeah, a lot of them actually are more rooted in reality.
Yes,
and a lot of those people end up being my
themselves in
fans.
the arena.
I get DMs from professional female
really?
athletes, all the time, and they're like, "Yeah, duh," like it's not even in the same universe.
Yeah.
One of them was telling me, he's like, just an average guy wouldn't want to tangle with an average man.
No.
She's like, my husband's not a bodybuilder, and he's still strong as shit in comparison to me.
Well,
and I'm like, well, that makes sense. But the thing is like, my whole point is to talk about the idea of virtues, right? How is it not virtuous that we show that kind of restraint? That men who can, since you're in a vulnerable position, do this to you, but don't.
Yeah.
But get no credit for the virtue that they don't.
Well, I think we do. I think that one of the things we hold in
From
high
who?
regard.
From who?
We just take it for granted. In other words, when you're a heavyweight UFC fighter, but even the idea like we would never almost universally there seems to be a human ideal, at least within their own societies, that you don't just trample the innocent and the defenseless.
In
right?
the West, maybe.
Yeah, you want to protect the defenseless and the innocent.
Sounds a lot like appealing to that pesky Christianity again.
Well, it does, but we had that peculiar institution where we contended with it. We contended with our own inequality. We started contending with that the minute the founding fathers. I mean, George Washington wrote a whole bunch about the evils of slavery. I mean, it wasn't until the cotton gin came along and cotton became something that was really profitable. But for the most part, it does seem like.
Well, industrialization was always going to eliminate slavery because slavery's it's not profitable in comparison to the replacement with machinery.
So hold that thought. What do you think of with AI and with this advancement of technology as it sort of almost erases the relevance of male and female strength inequalities, the inherent differences in our bone structure and our.
How does it do that?
Well, whether it's weaponry or whatever it might be, as things look, we're fighting with drones now. So now it's about this, right? So more and more we're seem to be your physical
Until
attributes.
you load that first 100-pound missile on the drone.
Yeah, well, you need
and
some guys.
and then you transport it, 500 miles down the road in this massive diesel truck that's a manual steering, nightmare through all sorts of horrific terrain.
We may have,
and then we have to mine all the shit for the bombs out of the most desolate wasteland fucking conditions possible.
Yeah.
While, so
do you
it
ever
all
worry?
Seems like it's still going to reduce the strength.
Maybe. Do you worry about AI sort of as sort of almost a satanic force? Is there ever a thought that we are rendering humanity irrelevant?
Well, I mean, how long have we been hearing this shit, right? It's like
a long time.
Y2K, that was
right.
it. This gonna happen
Acid
next.
rain.
This gonna happen next. The fucking hole in the ozone's gonna kill everyone. Yeah. It's always one panic after another. You know what I've seen? Here's what I've seen from AI so far, right? All the fucking doom and gloom, right? I've seen memes that aren't good. That's about what I've seen. Or people use it to undress women that they want to see naked.
Yeah.
That's about as far as I've seen. 90% of the users are like, I want to see what her tits look like. Hey, Grok, can you show me this chick's tits and draw her out?
Right.
Grok's like, yeah, sure, I don't care. Because it doesn't, it's a speech program.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, there is no AI. Artificial intelligence doesn't exist. What we're using,
large language models.
we're just using, language models. That's it. And so the language model itself, right? People, it's so uppity about, and you know why it is? It's because we can't utilize language. Like if you talk to ChatGPT about this, you're like, why is it that people actually humanize you? You don't exist for all intents and purposes. It's like, yeah, I don't. But the reason is because when we use language, we automatically assume a you. So that's why we say things like Siri's talking right now. Siri's not talking because there's no fucking Siri.
Right.
It's just some made up shit, right? It's just some like referent that we have to this thing speaking, but thing's not even speaking. Right? It's like none of that's happening.
Really interesting.
But we immediately assign it that way because that's the only way our brains can function.
So, I always think about this I have all the facts I want on my phone. I have all the knowledge I want on my phone. They're right there. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get me really that much closer to the truth. There are endless numbers of facts. And what do you think of the idea? Do you think the more something is true, the more it's good? Do you equate truth
generally,
with good? Yeah.
Generally speaking, yes. I think there's a universal intuition like this. This is why you see the outrage about the Epstein files.
Yeah.
Right? People are like, look, if we know more about the truth, they seem to universally think it's good, right? This reminds me of a movie, though, actually. This conundrum comes up. You ever seen the movie 8mm with Nicolas Cage?
Yeah.
There's a great scene in that movie where Cage says, look, to the mom of this missing girl. She's been missing